Hi, guys. Welcome, everyone. And
Hello.
especially Manan, it's very early for you in California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, it is bright and early.
Simon and Amol, you're both from London, right? Or thereabouts?
That's right.
Yeah, I'm in London as well.
Yeah.
Enjoying the grey sky.
Well, it's nice and blue here in Brussels, but windy. Anyways, this is going to be a very interesting panel for people, so I'd like to get right into it. And first, if you could each introduce yourself and say just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your company, and maybe one thing you feel is the most important thing happening in cloud networking right now. I'll start with you, Amol.
Oh, thank you, Gail. Hello, everybody. This is Amol Phadke. I am Managing Director at Google Cloud, looking after our global telecom industry solutions portfolio. Gail, I don't want to say what Google is. I think that's pretty much understood. But I think
people know.
We at Google Cloud are focused on partnering with our global telecom clients to try and see how we could collaborate on a number of cloud opportunities. And the one thing that I think is the most important thing happening at the moment, from my perspective, is this whole wave of multi-cloud and network and IT convergence, because I think that will really impact and create a big sort of transformation in the industry.
Great, thanks. Simon, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Simon Nash. I'm a global solution architect from Equinix. So we're well known for our colo services, but we're evolving more now towards a platform-based organization, focusing on interconnection and the customer edge. So the big thing that we've been witnessing over the past few years is a shift away from the traditional centralized data center, where applications and services are being housed, and more towards a decentralized architecture with applications and services spanning several clouds as well as on-premise. So in essence, the emergence of a distributed hybrid multi-cloud strategy or an approach.
Great. And last but not least, Manan.
Thanks, Gail, for having me. My name is Manan Shah. I head the product management and technical marketing at Alkira. Alkira is a Silicon Valley startup with disrupting the cloud networking industry. And as Amol and Simon both mentioned, cloud networking is drastically changing. And as enterprises move their workloads to multiple public clouds, multi-cloud is definitely becoming a reality. So Alkira essentially offers a network cloud solution, a network as a service solution that dramatically simplifies and provides the agility for enterprises to adopt hybrid and multi-cloud networks. And essentially, every enterprise has a multi-cloud strategy. Every provider wants to be part of that. But essentially, a solution like Alkira makes that a reality.
Okay, great. I think I'll first pick up a little bit, Simon, on what you were saying in terms of the interconnect market, because we spend a lot of time talking about multi-cloud and big cloud environments, but there's still a lot going on in the private data centers, and as you said, moving more towards the edge. So, how does Equinix see the state of interconnection, kind of generally in the marketplace right now?
So what we've actually been seeing, there's a few things. So the one is that certain customers have got some very strict compliance and governance requirements. They've got data sovereignty requirements, particularly government type organizations, around the physical location of their data. And that's basically forcing them to consider things like hybrid compute infrastructure, so they can offer a level of assurance around where their data is actually located. The other thing is not all applications and services are suitable for cloud or virtualized environments, and they require to be housed or run on physical hardware. The other thing is around cost and performance. Two other possible factors, which is, where in certain cases, getting the required level of performance at the right price point is sometimes more achievable using hardware. And the last thing is around ecosystem accessibility. We're experiencing a marked increase in organizations needing to transact with one another. So this could be business to business, business to partners. And a good example of this would be the trading environment, where they need ultra low latency and they need a secure environment to be able to do that in. Okay, great. So still quite the messy world, we all know, with lots of diversity. Yeah. Some of the cases you were talking about, also start talking about, specialized environment, but that could be edge environments, maybe rather than, completely separate environments. So I'm going to use that as an opening to talk more about edge computing, and then we'll talk about the access, how that affects the access market. But just starting with edge computing, I think I'll start with you, Amol. What do you? There's so many different meanings for edge, right? There's the consumer, the enterprise edge, the telco edge, the cloud edge itself. So how do you sort it out? And are there some dominant use cases for edge right now, or is it all of the above?
Right. It's a great question, Gail. I think, before we talk about edge, it's just worth understanding why has edge computing in general become a really important topic for the industry. And if you sort of look at how the monetization models for carriers or enterprises or cloud players have played out, pretty much all of them had to invest and are still investing significant amounts of capital in infrastructure and in building out their particular networks, whether it's to meet the demand that the pandemic has placed on the infrastructure or whether it's to get ready for 5G. But whatever the reason may be, for instance, we have seen numbers that are well in excess of $800 billion globally over the next decade of investments that are going to go in. Now, those kind of investments obviously need a return on those investments. And that sort of ROI starts at the edge. And what I mean by that is edge is ultimately, whether it's the carrier's edge or the cloud provider's edge or even the enterprise edge, is a touch point for where the sort of end consumers or end businesses ultimately interact with, because that's where their traffic is coming from, their services is coming from. So that's why I think edge computing has now started to become a very important sort of piece of the overall pie. And when you talk about use cases, both in B2B and B2C, we are starting to see some clear use cases that are being developed. I mean, we are working with our carrier partners in the B2C space, for instance, to create video solutions or cloud gaming solutions at the edge as two use cases. And both of them are becoming very popular and require sort of differential latency and low latency type services at high bandwidth speeds at the edge of where the consumer sits or where the home sits. And so that's where we partner with carrier partners to see how we could leverage that. And then on the B2B side, we see specific industry verticals such as manufacturing or retail, looking at edge computing as a way to create better personalized experiences for their in-store customers or for their plant workers and so on. So there are certain industry verticals as well as the whole B2C space where we are seeing edge computing really picking up, regardless of whether it is at our edge, Google Cloud Edge, or whether in our carrier partners' edge, or in case of some private enterprise networks, even on-prem for our enterprise clients.
Great. Simon, do you want to expand on that in any cases, or shall we move on to other topics?
So I can quickly add something in there. One of the things that we've been hearing from a lot of the mobile providers, there's three broad categories that are driving edge. The big thing is is around reducing cost. with ultra-distributed CDNs, the demand on, core network infrastructure and network bandwidth can be better managed. The other thing is obviously lowers the actual latency. Multi-party connectivity can be done that much closer, and compute can obviously be performed that much deeper in the network to support certain of these specific use cases. And then the other thing was around privacy protection. So keeping the actual data local for things like health, insurance, and other types of industries that access sensitive type of information. And then one of the there's several actual use cases that are certainly starting to come to, the top of the market. One which I'm most interested in is the online gaming. Particularly not because I'm a gamer myself, it's because I have a son who, although
we all have to grow up someday.
Yeah, although I've got a gaming chair, one would think I am. No, it's actually more my son, because my son constantly complains around lag. So the big thing around what Edge will ultimately be able to address is the latency requirement for a lot of these online games that they're playing.
Great. I just have one. It's kind of personal curiosity on my side, because, I saw, particularly the Microsoft announcements that came out really talk a lot about private 5G as a kind of driving force. And I'm too old in the industry. I keep, every wave of new wireless technology, people think that the spectrum, telco-based solutions are going to take over inside the building, and the Wi-Fi just keeps plugging right along. And so tell me how real you guys think 5G is. I don't know which one wants to start, but private 5G. I don't mean public 5G. Obviously people are rolling out 5G networks, but inside the building, is it really going to take over from Wi-Fi?
I can go. I think the 5G, private 5G has a lot of potential. I don't think we are there yet. I think it can be really disruptive. And then at the same time, there's a Wi-Fi 6 standard that is also changing the way how wireless LANs are deployed going forward. So I think we are evolving to newer standards and newer capabilities, faster access, and latency is definitely an issue. So I don't see why the 5G taking over in the next year, but it has a real potential of every device in the world being 5G enabled and customers connecting directly from their devices, no matter what device it is, to the cloud and accessing applications.
Great.
And I think if I just add something to what Manan said, Gail, ultimately, it's about what are the underlying spectrum benefits that 5G would bring that Wi-Fi cannot sustain, is where we will make the decision points in terms of whether we stick to Wi-Fi or whether we go to licensed spectrum. Because, the way the standards are evolving and the amount of devices that you need to support in a private network, whether it's just a campus versus thousands of drones in a factory, or machines. So that would dictate the amount of spectrum capabilities that are needed, and that will then dictate the choice ultimately of whether we want to use that sort of licensed spectrum.
Yeah, licensed spectrum is always a key issue, and maybe sometime, maybe this will be the time that it really flips because of the size and complexity. But let's move on from 5G, and Manan, you guys just launched not very long ago, about 4 months ago, and congratulations on your B round. For me, I see you kind of as a new category of player, building directly on the cloud, pure play. And you come from the SD-WAN world. It's not that you don't know it. It's not that you don't know what it's capable of. Could you just give, a kind of driving reason why you guys decided to do what you're doing rather than build a better Viptela?
Yeah, no, thanks, Gail. And yes, for folks who don't know me, I did spend 4 years in SD-WAN startup. With Tela, we were leaders in the space, and then got acquired by Cisco in 2017, and that's Cisco SD-WAN. Absolutely right. What we saw when we started this company is the traffic patterns are significantly changing, right? Everyone's moving to multiple clouds, and SD-WAN to me is one way of connecting into the cloud. What customers needed was a new way to reimagine networking. And how do I build networking and network services and everything aligned to that? So today, if you think about in the last 10 years, majority of the applications were in the data centers. They are now moving to multiple public clouds and consumed as a SaaS service, right? So what does that mean to the network? Then what it means to the network is most of the traffic is going from branches, campuses, data centers, manufacturing plants, all into public cloud. So if most of the traffic is moving towards public clouds, do I need to take all my traffic to data center and hairpin from there? That is a conscious choice that customers need to make. So there is a real need for thinking about a network in a holistic manner. At the same time, both SPs as well as CSPs, cloud service providers, are investing billions of dollars every year in building a very robust backbone. So what we realize is there is this multiple factors playing in, applications moving to cloud, traffic patterns changing. There's a new age cloud backbone. So why not build a network that leverages multiple clouds, leverages backbone, and provides a very easy to consume network as a service solution that stitches everything together. If I go to an enterprise today or a service provider today and ask the networking and security team, how many people really know 2 clouds? I don't want to say 3, 4, 5, 2 clouds well. There's probably 1 or 2 hands raised in every audience. And that is a real challenge today. So we wanted to build a very simple, agile, nimble solution that can be consumed as a service. If I can consume Salesforce, Workday, you named a SaaS application as a service, where I don't need to worry about where it's deployed, how it's operated, how it's managed. I just consume it. Why can't we do the same thing for networking? That was the thought process. And I think it plays very well with SPs and MSPs, right? Historically, MSPs, if you look at it, they offered WAN circuits. They offered managed WAN. They offered managed LAN. And as enterprises go into this multi-cloud world, this is a great opportunity to increase the addressable market for the service providers and now start offering managed cloud networking for the enterprises.
Great. Thanks, man. And I think we can pick up on what you're saying. I as you know, view it as a big trend. That's why we constructed this panel this way. But I think there's a couple of things you can pick up in what you were saying. First of all, you're like what I'd say a middle layer player helping people stitch it together. There are other ways, obviously, to solve the multi-cloud issues. I mean, Amol, how do you see the market? Do you think Google itself will be the one solving a lot of the multi-cloud issues, or is it a very big ecosystem with a lot of people playing in this new world?
No, I think, Gail, fantastic point. We definitely view this as an ecosystem play. And let me explain what I mean. So there are these constituents. So we start from the enterprise who are genuinely trying to understand, to Manan's point, how do I make best use of my application experience that I want to give to my users? And what's the best least cost way of getting that done? Because one thing we always have to remember is ultimately enterprises view everything we just discussed as cost. But this is nothing to do with their core business. Their core business is to run stores or build automobiles or manufacture medicines. But anyway, so for them, how do I get to these applications at the lowest cost point with the best possible experience, right? And so they are the first constituent of this ecosystem. And then we have the service providers of all sizes and regional capabilities, but they are really essentially trying to provide the connectivity fabric to try and help these enterprises get to those applications. And so for Google Cloud, we looked at multi-cloud as a given. We did not try to sort of say, hey, all applications are going to sit on one type of cloud. We sort of acknowledge, our own applications run on other clouds, and similarly, other applications run on multiple clouds. So when we launched Anthos a few months ago, the idea was to create a management and orchestration plane in software that can essentially take care of elasticity of applications and workloads, regardless of whether it sits on an on-prem cloud or a public cloud or Google Cloud. And so we believe that's quite an important element of this because, as I said before, as network and IT workloads that enterprises are running start to come together, it's important to get that seamless experience. And then, to Manan's point, there are going to be more connectivity models. Folks are starting to use hub and spoke more than branch to branch. And as those models evolve, we believe getting to cloud as soon as possible, as fast as possible, is actually the best sort of way forward. And then, of course, they have plenty of ecosystem players in there offering connectivity to cloud as the fastest way. But to be clear, Google Cloud will not necessarily create all those options because we want folks to have that cloud experience once they are on our cloud.
Great. I just want to remind the audience that feel free to put questions into the chat. I've got plenty of questions, but we would love to hear from you guys as well. Just finishing up on this, I had kind of two more questions in the multi-cloud area. Simon, obviously, there are the clouds, there are the networks trying to connect them. Equinix, in a lot of ways, sits really kind of what I consider the heart of interconnection. Do you see a real shift right now of most of the access and the traffic and the carriers trying to get as fast as possible to cloud, or is there still growing other areas that they're trying to come into, like the colo areas and the the private data centers?
So there certainly is a shift to try and improve access into the clouds. So the big thing they're trying to do is reduce the latency between user and application. So what we're seeing is the actual wide area network infrastructure now being changed and pushed more towards what we call the distributed network architecture. They're incorporating things like SD-WAN. So what they're actually doing is they're creating these hubs, these distributed hubs across different parts of the globe or different geographies, and they're short-hauling a lot of the WAN interconnectivity into these locations because they're dropping the last mile costs as well. It improves the quality of experience for the users. And what they're also doing in these locations is because they're aggregating all the sites and the users into these specific facilities, this creates a natural on-ramp or aggregation point for picking up access into the clouds. And it's here that you can also support the whole multi-cloud access requirements as well. Because, as the other two gentlemen have pointed out, customers are putting applications into various clouds based on different requirements, service maturity, and so forth. And having this neutral environment that's able to access and provide that easy, secure interconnectivity between them makes a lot of sense for customers. It's also more cost-effective for them doing it through some form of private exchange environment.
Okay, great. A lot of people here are working on SD-WAN, so I can't pass up the opportunity, especially Manan, with you coming from that background, is how do you guys see the interrelationship between multi-cloud routing or SDCI and SD-WAN. I noticed you have some integration with Cisco. But how do you, I mean, each solution, in some ways, SD-WAN could be seen as a multi-cloud solution as well. So, how do you see the relationship between the two areas?
Yeah, it's very interesting. From a background perspective, I started expanding SD-WAN into cloud when I was at Cisco. Before I realized that there's a real shift in mentality, right? The SD-WAN, let's say, brings you to multiple different clouds. But what customers really need is, let's say, today there are many data centers, and as Gail, you mentioned, data centers are growing, whether it's private data centers or in co-location facilities. But as customers move more and more workloads to clouds, they need not only SD-WAN type of connectivity. SD-WAN to us is definitely one type of connectivity, and it's not just Cisco SD-WAN. I talk about all the SD-WAN vendors, and there's a need to build that marketplace of SD-WAN vendors, which is what we are doing. But then there is a need for different types of connectivity. There is Google Interconnect, there is AWS Direct Connect. There's ways to connect high throughput connectivity into the cloud. Then there is a need for getting remote users into cloud. In this day and age, when a lot of us are working from home, I may not even have a SD-WAN, or I may not need a SD-WAN for a lot of smaller home offices, right? I can just do the remote user connectivity directly into the cloud and have a consistent network in the cloud where, whether I'm coming from SD-WAN, whether I'm coming from remote user, whether I'm coming from a direct connect or a Google Interconnect, I have the same policies, I have the same traffic patterns, and I can insert services dynamically. So I want to envision a world where there is multiple clouds, application access, SaaS services, and I can insert a firewall, a load balancer, a DDI service. If I want to get rid of my data center, I need a cloud agnostic platform on which I can run services. And again, from an access connectivity, it could be SD-WAN, absolutely. And I see SD-WAN in fact growing in the market. But also there could be many different ways you come into it. Remote users, that's software-defined perimeter is another area which is really picking up.
Yeah. So you mentioned marketplaces, and I'd kind of like to come up off the infrastructure, off the connectivity, because obviously, one of the things once you're connected to this cloud and using this cloud is that there's a tremendous library of applications. One carrier I'm working with has recently put some of their machine learning for the oil and ESG application. I mean, I'm sure you can find something for every vertical, every use case, every scenario you could think of, and it's kind of like if you're a product marketing manager or a service developer, it's a candy store. But how do you see these marketplaces working? Because there's marketplaces everywhere, and they're all kind of components right now. So start with the small guys. Do they have a real opportunity, do you think, to kind of, consume packages that you or others have pre-packaged together for them and radically change the type of services that they can offer?
Yeah. Was there a question for me?
I'll
let Amol start with that because he's probably got the biggest.
That's what I was thinking as well.
No, I was just going to say that, Gail, I see there is going to be a consolidation on marketplaces in general over the next 2 to 3 years. And the reason we are thinking that way is, if you look at what happened in the handset space, where we created a couple of different ways for, essentially app stores of various forms. And then we quickly realized that kind of innovation is exponential and it's hard to control by one or two entities. It's much better to have individual, smaller, specialized core competencies that are writing purpose-built applications, as long as we create a sort of API-driven marketplace that lets them do that. Yeah. That has not really happened in the sort of telecoms sector or industry in general, because a lot of these ecosystems were locked until the last 4 or 5 years. And now with the cloudification and softwareization, they are opening up, which means I suspect a number of our, and that's what we are working on. For instance, we are working with a number of our telecom operator partners to create joint marketplaces for the region or the country in which they operate. And those marketplaces are not the universal set of applications, Gail. They are more API-driven platforms or environments that are created on which other smaller third parties should be able to innovate and put applications, whether it's to take advantage of network intelligence or identity or application or storage environments or capacity and so on. So I think that will happen. Each country or region will have 2 or 3, I would say, telecom marketplaces on which, and those would be really innovation platforms, because it's impossible for one entity to come up with all possible applications for telecom, for instance. But Manan, I don't know what you think.
No, I completely agree. It is going to be different based on where you are, based on what you are offering, and based on what the enterprises want. It is going to be regional. Different providers would want different services. I go back to network services, right? If you look at service providers across the globe, not every service provider is offering the same services. Every service provider is catering to, let's say, smaller enterprises, larger enterprises, offering different services. Some start with as simple as firewall services. Some people have voice services. Some have from different vendors. Some have their own services. So I think the marketplaces are going to be very different and very customized.
Okay, great. And I think we're coming pretty much to the close of our time. It's been it goes fast. It's a fascinating subject. So, I'd like maybe each one of you to come back kind of a similar question to what I asked first, but just leave us with your thought of what the greatest opportunity is for the telecom industry and all these product managers who are sitting out in the audience. You want to start, Simon? You've been silent for a while.
Yeah, happy to do that. I think what organizations are going to have to do, in particular providers, is they're going to have to evolve their traditional products towards a more software-centric approach. If you can make it easy for a customer to consume and very quick for them to deploy, and it's obviously utilizing the right commercial purchasing mechanism, so an OpEx-based offering, customers will certainly take an interest, and that will put you in a very strong position in the marketplace. It's certainly something, that's our view on that, and that's certainly the approach we are starting to take more so with a lot of our offerings.
Okay, great. Manan, one last thought?
I think this is a great opportunity and great timing for service providers. Not only they have some of the largest network, they have some of the largest enterprises for whom they manage the networks. So as customers move into multi-cloud, so the application developers are moving to multi-cloud. It's the networking team now has to enable those multi-cloud and, as I say, pave the highways for everyone to access the applications. And that is where the real lack of expertise is. That also creates a huge opportunity for service providers to create this new offerings. And I couldn't agree more with Simon in terms of more software, more as a service. If I am consuming everything through my phone, if I'm consuming all of the SaaS applications on the app side, why can't I consume network as a service? Yeah. And why can't service providers offer that network as a service? So this is a great timing and great opportunity for all the providers, all the product managers, as you said, Gail, to look at what network as service offerings are out there, which kind of leverage multiple different clouds and provide a cloud agnostic solution to enterprises.
Great. I'll leave you with the last word, Amol.
Well, thank you, Gail. I would just finish up by saying the other aspect, we didn't touch on it today, but I definitely see as something really big to consider is the importance of data and how networks, as they become more and more software, to Simon and Manan's point, are also going to be able to now relay tremendous amounts of data that was previously not accessible because it was all locked up in proprietary data sets. And so I think there is a tremendous opportunity for the provider community in general to look at that data, to have a lot more intelligence and analytics around what that data is telling us, and then build much better experiences at the end of the day for the customers. And again, that gets fueled the more softwareized your layers are. So I think that would be the way to sum it up.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. Data is going to be the lifeblood of all of this. So it's been very enjoyable, guys. Thanks for waking up early, Manan, and thanks all of you for supporting the event. I think we're going to go probably pretty quickly, guys, into the next presentation. So for those listening, don't go too far away. We'll take a short break, but then come right back on stage.
Thank you very much for having us.
Bye.